Greetings, traveler.
Hey guys, Slyders and Mathrais, the rank 3 and 2 in Europe, got together and made a tier list of all the Timewarp cards. So let's go over it and see which cards they think are the best. So the tier list has been divided into tiers, as the word would imply. We are going to start from the bottom up, which they have designated as the trash tier. At the end of the lesser Timewarps, I will give you guys a nice big overview of what is exactly in what tier, and the images will also be available in the video description if you'd like to have a nice little overview. So on the trash tier, I'm not going to take super long for every card, but we are going to go over maybe some interesting or surprising picks, maybe things that I disagree with or stuff that I can find really good reasons for. I want to share that with you guys. So on the first one, most of this makes sense. I would say that Timewarp apples is something that can pop off. You can have that with the tier 6 undead, the Weaver, where you roll and then every roll is a spell cast. You can have it with Felbor, you can have it with Smudger, but it is very, 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 very early to pick such a card to maybe get some value later on. So I do think that's why they've designated trash, because on average it's a very risky investment that could give you very low return compared to some of the better alternatives we're going to be seeing later in the tier list. Then George Hero Power here going to trash, which is really a huge difference going from 1 to 2 chronums. George was such a cool pick for 1 chronom. I would say it's like almost one of the best then, because you could do like a shiny ring plus George and then get a shiny ring every turn, and then you have a Hooktail, and then you give your board full Divine Shield and lots of damage, and that was nasty. Flurgle being trash for 2, I can also see a little slow. I think if I made a tier list myself, I probably wouldn't have designated it trash, but maybe a tier up above that. But they're very harsh to saying, no, it's too slow, you're gonna die, you need to pick some tempo, you need to take stuff that gives you value immediately. And then Frogs here is the same thing, where I always say when Frog pops in the shop that as long as new Zhao is in the game, you can't really play Frogs, because your opponents, when they see that you're playing Frogs, can just make a Windfury Nuzao, and it's so hard to play around that. Also, there's no Mana Saber in the game right now, like there's no support, like Frog feels super out of place. All right, so now that we've gotten past the trash tier, we're gonna, I guess, talk progressively more as we get into the really good cards, because there's, you know, hopefully you're gonna be picking those more often. You need to know why you're picking them. So now we have sometimes good. So not always trash, not always good, but sometimes good, right? I would say the one that stands out here is Timewarp Beanstalk, where they also put it fairly low. I think if on my own, I probably would have put it 1 tier above, but I can see that in situations where you are like Voon and you can Beanstalk and then copy the high tier minion, that's super cool, or the high tier card, you can just be like really, really far ahead, and then you can take a Beanstalk as well. So Beanstalk, I would say, is the most surprising one on this tier. Out of these, I think Timewarp Archer I tend to take sometimes if I really need tempo and I have an extra chronom available, because I took like a Sylvanas Hero Power. Other than that, I don't think there's anything here that's really that surprising. Most of these are tough to utilize. Then we have another section of sometimes good. Timewarp Traveler at 1 chronom and more stats is still only sometimes good, and I would agree with that. Timewarp Commander I take when I have Zesty, and then I think it's like sometimes good. It's in the sometimes good category then, where you're like, oh yeah, I have Zesty. Because the Timewarp Commander's spellcraft is permanent, but the Zesty will still give it back to you. So if you have 2 Zesties on the board, you get 3 Timewarp Commander spells, which is bonkers tempo. That's like 30-30 to your board or something per turn. It's ridiculous, right? So I am partial to that card because I like to pick up Zesty to open up Deep Blue mid game. So when I get offered Timewarp Commander, then I'm like, oh cool, I can run that. Sporebat and mech lobbies, you can try to push for Photobomber. You can reborn this thing and farm a lot of spells. Timewarp Investment, again, is like, it's so slow. Most of the time you want to get value from the small Timewarp immediately, but sometimes you're in a very, very, very strong position and you can afford to take it. So again, right, sometimes good. Other than that, nothing that stands out too much. And I think the last slide of this category, Guff is also one of those things that you take when you are really far ahead. So you will not be needing help right away. So that means your health is high, your board is strong, everything is nice and dandy, and you're like, okay, I'll just take Guff and then I'll just get value later in the game. Alakir is also more specific. Oh, it's a beast lobby. I can make Wind Fury Parrot or Wind Fury Nuzao, you know, but now that we have the Wind Fury Scarab, you can kind of do that anyway. So it's really Divine Shield and it diminishes a little bit. So it's like you need to have something on the board most of the time that you can already take advantage of. So if you already have a rally and then you get Power of Alakir, you're like, okay, sure. Timewarp Sally also pretty slow. Again, I would probably have put it a tier higher because it's still economy, but it is 2 chronums. It's a little slow, so I can see why it's here. All right, now we have arrived in the good category. So these are just things that we can feel good about taking. And oh, this is trash or not great. What stands out here? Let's talk a little bit more about these. So Timewarp Trainee is criminally underrated by players. I take this all the time because it's 3 gold and sometimes a pair, sometimes a triple. Sometimes you're like, ooh, free Hooktail, and then suddenly that makes you stronger. So the trainee helps quite a bit. So yeah, don't be afraid to just take this if you have an extra chronum, or if you just need to fill out your board, or if you want to level and you need some money, this is great. Nelly Ship is another one that is not super cleared. It's pretty slow, but it can help you find shipment. So you can go to tier 5 fast and then use the Nelly Ship to discover shipment. And then you can use all kinds of combos like Terran, like Macaw, like Titus, and you can farm like golden copies. So that's when this starts to make a lot more sense if you have multipliers. If you're gonna get 1 pirate, it's not that great. So I do think that they intend for you to use this when you have a multiplier available for the Nelly Ship. So y6n, or you already have a Terran Hero Power, something like that. Timewarp Bob Smuggler is crazy tempo if you have a Hooktail. That is just great stats to the board. And there's a couple other things you can do. Like I had Lord of Ruins with a Bob Smuggler, which also is just 3 health for every little shot from the Blaster and the Lord of Ruins. So there's some spicy little options here. Lover also being in good surprised me a little bit. I don't pick it very often, but I suppose that it's just a 5/7 body and it gives you some easier access to, like, let's say if you already have a Hooktail or you have a Plankwalker, or at the very least pirates are in, you can find those cards and then you can just like buy the spell, refresh, and the spell automatically refreshes itself, so you don't have to roll. So you can buy spells for cheap and then get tempo with those cards. So I would say that this is probably more like a pirate pick where you can spam spells and really get a lot of value with that. Timewarp Skipper is just money, so that makes sense that it's over here. Tipper in the good category is actually very fun for me because I'm an oil enjoyer, right? So getting that at 1 chronum and the stats being boosted to 6/8, finally enough to push this in the good category. Henchman is also like fine, right? That's just like, or maybe not fine, we'll call it good, because you get some economy, right? And it's a decent body. Same thing with Yogg Buddy, right? Decent body with economy. So you can kind of put it in that category like, oh, decent body plus some money, good. Then same thing for the Pashmar, decent body with value, more value, but it is 2 chronums, right? If you have a little bit of a farm setup available, then you can just get a lot of value from that. Shadow Dancer being in the same tier as Sylvanas is incredibly surprising. Intuitively, I would disagree with it, but I am here to learn, right? I'm trying to understand why they do that. So I'm guessing with Shadow Dancer, there is some spellcast synergy, again, where you have like Hooktail or Plankwalker or Nala or something, and then end of turn you cast that. You have some spell buffs. Perhaps they favor Felbor more, and if you have a few spell buffs to the shop, it's easier to buy a Felbor and get that online. So that might be where the disconnect is with my playstyle. I rarely play Felbor. It's one of my weaknesses in this meta. So I will try to do that a bit more, picking the Shadow Dancer and see where that leads. Same thing with the Thorncaller there, activating shop buffs, opening up the Felbor more. But Sylvanas just being in good and not being even higher, to me is slightly surprising because I really love taking this thing. Shudderwalk, yeah, I see that is more situational. Ring, solid. Zephyrus, solid. So I would say the one that stands out to me here in the negative sense is Sylvanas. I would not have thought that it was so that it was a tier lower. I would put it a tier higher. And the Shadow Dancer would not have expected it to make it to the good tier. So those two are very interesting to see. And then we have the final selection in the good tier. We have this cheap tempo, because you might look at a Neutron and Cyclone and say, huh, how is this good? Like, these are great picks if you're losing fights. Like, if you think of a Neutron or even Cyclone, they do this roughly the same thing. They deal 24 damage for 1 chronum, right? It's 6 and then they die, or the shield is gone, and then it's 6 again, and then they die, and then they come back with a shield, and then it's 6 again, and then it's 6 again, and that's tough, right? And it also helps you trigger Avenges, because they have Reborn, especially a Neutron is a Reborn taunt, so super useful in that regard. New Recruit also being in the good category, I guess, is similar to the Lubber being in the good category, where very, very useful to cycle spells. I think it's mainly for that. I don't think it's for the minions as much. I think they probably really value that automatic spell refresh to gain tempo, or just get lucky and be like, oh, this is some money, this is some money, this is some money. So lots of cool stuff there. All right, so that's it for the good category. And now we've arrived in the very good category. So these are picks that you should probably take if they are available in your shop. And again, some surprises here. Terran and Lich King, no surprise there. It's a pretty death rattle heavy meta. There's some very cool stuff you can do, especially if you already have a good death rattle on your board. It's a no-brainer. Sometimes you get a death rattle minion in the shop and you can immediately reborn it or Terran it, so very cool. Timewarped Lay has just straight up opportunities to win you the game. There's all kinds of funky combos, and at worst it's plus 1 body per turn that you can also eventually triple, so very good. Embalmer in the very good category also makes sense. I don't play it as often, but you can just, again, reborn good death rattles. And if you want to play high level and a little boring in the right lobby, let's say if there's like no beasts and no dragons and stuff and it's just undead, you could technically like reborn 2 Leroys eventually with this thing. And if, you know, the lobby isn't playing too much undead, that's going to be a big problem. So let's say there's like pirates in, there's elementals in, and you have these big opponents, you can just keep the Embalmer and make 2 reborn Leroys, and that's just pretty toxic. Busker in very good is surprising, but it's money. It interacts with Lich King, it interacts with Terran, so I can see why they have that package over there. Same thing with Greenskeeper. You can buy Greenskeeper and Busker in the same shop, use it to get all the money. You can use Greenskeeper kind of just like a macaw if beasts aren't in, so there's a lot of uses for this. So I wouldn't say that you like always take a Greenskeeper, but it's more like there's a high chance that you can use a Greenskeeper, and if you can use it, it's probably very good. Chimera and the very good is also slightly surprising, but I guess they made it from 2 chronums to 1, and then they buffed it from +1/+1 to 2/1, and that is probably similar like the Tipper, where the Tipper just kept getting buff and buff and buff and buff, where they say, okay, now there's so many buffs that this is actually just a very good card. So I will be taking Chimera more often. Festergut is no surprise. Again, if you already have the Lich King or the Terran hero power, because you are those heroes, super nasty, right? You can also just reborn it with a Soul Splitter or the Reborn Magnetic, because if Festergut is in, that means Reborns are in. Very, yeah, there's lots of ways that you can get a lot of value from this thing. And then the final selection of the very good category is Veilstraws and Kilrek, which is also body with economy. But I guess there is higher potential on this economy because Kilrek you can reborn with a specific thing, like if you're Lich King or you take the Lich King hero power plus the Kilrek, that's probably a nasty combo, or Terran plus Kilrek. And then you can just use that to, you know, have a great mid game. Veilstraws, you could Wind Fury that. If you have Power of Alakir, you could also just have it be big enough that it survives and it attacks twice. Botany, giving you a minion of your tier, is not just economy, right? That could just win you the game, give you a Bran, or it gives you a Drakari, and now it gives you 2 per turn. And then Pillager being guaranteed 2 gold per turn, plus the chance to do more if you have something like Tidus or Macaw. Very, very useful. Tavern spells these days are tempo, because you can have Plankwalker, or later on you can have Weaver and give you coins, or Nala. I've definitely had games where the Pillager stayed on my board for a very long time, because getting the spells was really useful, where you can even use Eyes on it later, and then it's 2 coins, and then you have a Tidus, and then it's 4 coins, right? So it's and then it has Reborn, so it does that again. So you can really get some crazy stuff with this guy. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for. This is the top category of the lesser time warps. almost auto pick, or it's just straight up broken, right? These are just translations for what they had. In the final picture, we'll have the original for the French enthusiasts. Timewarp Elise, that's no surprise. Rolling golden minions is insane, and then you also get to play the triple reward. So I would say that the Timewarp Elise is more tricky than some of the other auto picks, because you have to be in a slightly better position to run that. Sometimes you need tempo straight away, and it's better to take, let's say, that Annoyatron or that Cyclone to get the instant tempo. But especially if you're already on tier 4 when the time warp happens, Elise is almost a snap pick, because you can put it on the board, roll 5 times, get a golden 4-drop and a 5-drop. And that's a great turn. Like, you should not be hesitant about that. Because if you compare that to what you would normally do, if you're just going to roll on tier 4 and buy 2 cards and maybe a spell, that's just worse than a golden 4-drop and a 5-drop. So with Elise, you can quite confidently just put her on the board, roll 5 times, get a golden 4-drop and a 5-drop, and that's a very good turn. So that's why it's up here. Big winner, again, no surprise there. Getting the prize that steals the shop is stupid good. I think that you can now also get the minion from a tier higher, but they changed it so that it's a 7-drop now if you're on 6. So that made it even better. So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to talk about it too much. Lasso is a bit surprising that it's in the broken category. Now, I take it all the time, so I probably should have realized it is 1 gold per turn, but not just 1 gold. You can use it to just steal a minion that you actually want. If you're on tier 4, again, like more value, you can fill your board faster. But the Zerus is by far the most surprising one in the broken category. I do not pick Zerus almost ever, so have I been missing out? I guess the opportunity to pick something at 1 chronum that can turn into a 2 chronum unit makes it broken. So let's say you have the Zerus and then it turns into Elise for a turn and you're like, oh cool, now I can just get a golden, sweet. Or it turns into the Sapper for a turn and then you reborn it and you get a bunch of spellcrafts, cool. So yeah, I would say that for the lesser time warps, this is absolutely the thing that I learned the most from the tier list. Like, I will be taking every Zerus from now on. Not only just because, oh, it's good, I'll take it, but I want to see it, I want to learn it, I want to feel like, okay, how is this? But I can imagine it, right? Like, just getting the 2 cost chronums on certain turns, and also being able to say, you know, I take Zerus and the Lasso, because the Zerus is only 1 chronum, quite good. Sapper, now that we have that Death Rattle Naga, the Cyclist that buffs your board, Sapper plays into that super easy, because they returned the Reborn spellcraft to the pool. So now the Sapper can get, well, I get Spite Scale Special, and the Spite Scale Special can get the Reborn, and then you put that on the Sapper, and that's, I mean, disgusting. Now you're getting a lot of, they're getting 6 spellcrafts per fight. It can help you get D-Blue early on if you have Zesty, all kinds of good stuff. Paygold needs not that much explanation. I would say with mech lobbies, you have to be a little careful. Probably have to put a bumper. Probably also want to have 1 or 2 taunts to protect your Paygold. But on the right board, this is just a triple machine, which is super good. Evolving Tavern, insane in tier 7 lobbies. You could evolve into 7s with this. But also, most of the time, you're going to take this. You're going to wait 1 turn so that you have 2 Evolving Taverns. And then you can just either go to 5 and get 6s and reroll them, or you can still be on tier 4 and evolve 4-drops into 6s. So lots of cool stuff there. One small tip with the Evolving Tavern is that a lot of the time you have some high tier minions that you don't really want. You buy the ones that you want and then you just freeze and then you evolve them again next turn. That's really useful. And finally, we have Timewarp Recycler in almost auto-pick broken. I'm guessing that this happened when they turned it from Avenge 5 to Avenge 4. Now, it's no surprise that I like Strike Oil, so I also like this unit. And I had a really fun, cool game with it yesterday, and then I was like, oh yeah, I've got to pick this more often. But that also slightly surprising. I would have probably automatically put it into good, and then say, oh yeah, on an Avenge board, really nice, you can take it. But auto-pick / broken means I'm not picking this enough, so I will be trying this more often. And here we have the full overview. Sorry for the picture quality, but it's this is the original, right? So this is the actual tier list that Slyders and Mathrais made. But there's also just a lot of stuff that we have to cram into one image. That's why we broke everything down tier by tier, so you can see it in detail there. And if you're not sure or you ever want to come back to it, this is a good place. Again, I will be sharing the full pictures in the description as well. And now we're on to the greater Timewarp. So as before, we're going to start with the trash. We're going to go through this a little fast and get to the good stuff. No big surprises here. I guess Painter in trash. I guess it's tough. You don't really want to be playing that kind of Murlocs. Timewarp Calligrapher is some economy, but I almost always sell it after a turn, or maybe like just use it as a battle cry and sell it. So I guess that is pretty trashy. Yeah, all of these make sense. Timewarp, Nomi, and trash. What? That must be a mistake. All right. Other than that, no. Poor Nomi. Even the Timewarp Nomi is trash. Yeah, Lucky Egg is also pretty slow. You'd have to get lucky, and you'd have to go Beanstalk into Lucky Egg, right? Yeah, otherwise it's too slow. Yeah, all of these seem pretty unplayable. I think Timewarp Amalgam isn't even in the game anymore because no one was picking it. Same with Promo Drake, actually. Yeah, these two in the bottom, they were included in the tier list because it was made like a few days ago. But I think since that we've had a patch that removed these two because no one was picking them. So they were bad and boring. And then the last segment of trash, I guess Timewarp Murgler might surprise some people, but you can already see it where they're gonna rank the Painter as trash. So like they're not looking to play that kind of comp where, you know, you're cycling, you're buffing the hand, then go Murgler. So yeah, they just don't rate it. They don't think it's very good at all. So like I said, we're not gonna linger here for too long. Move it on to the sometimes good tier. Here, yeah, Summoner is slow. I usually have a hard time keeping on my board, but again, sometimes it makes sense. Timewarp Subtrade, if you're playing Ballers, yes, sometimes then it's good. Gula Cabra, if you have the right setup for it, right? I think that's going to be the case for pretty much every card here. It's the preface. If you have the right setup for it, sure, right? So that's with almost all these cards. Yeah, Trumpeter, same thing. Like if you have the mana surges and you're spamming elementals, then sure. Greasebot, if you have a board full of divine shields and you need the tempo, sure, right? Pretty situational. Tony, same thing. Sometimes you play a comp and you have some key pieces that are tier 4. Just think of like Deep Blue. If you're playing Deep Blue and you can use Tony for some golden touches, you can have a bunch of golden zesties and you make a Deep Blue golden, sure, right? There's some uses for this. Yeah, not too exciting. A lot of these cards I almost never pick. Timewarp Geist sometimes good, I guess, also makes sense because you have to really be able to use it and be able to jump on it. So it's hard to argue with sometimes good because you can say, well, if I have this and this and this, and it's like, yeah, that's sometimes. So then sometimes good. But what makes a great Timewarp card is that you can pick it and suddenly be like, oh yeah, now I'm so strong, or I can use this, or it's good for my game. And then you can start building around it. Okay, cool. And now we are in the good category. We can see Boat is surprising, but I have spectated some games recently that have already changed my evaluation of Boat. So I did not used to take Boat at all because it seemed so memey. It's like, I'm gonna summon some pirates on the board, like it doesn't matter. But you use it to get economy, right? And then when you think about it, like, oh, don't think about it as tempo or anything like that. It's just money. You just use this for money. You could use Macaw and get 8 pirates. You could use Titus and get 8 pirates, as long as you just dump your hand. And if you're on tier 5 or even better, tier 6, you could be getting like Tethys, you could be getting Shipment, and all of a sudden you're in business, right? So for 1 Chronum, not that big of an investment. So that's, again, something that would have been a complete surprise to me like 2 weeks ago, but now that I've been spectating some of these players' games, I was like, oh, right, you can just take Boat for money. I was like, oh, okay. So my brain was already prepared for it. Be like, okay, Boat is good. Nice. Timewarp Plunder, same deal. Macaw, Titus, maybe the Greenskeeper that you took from the lesser Timewarp. Super good. Farm some oil. Really, really good stuff. Timewarp Revelation at good, that comes as a big surprise because usually when I am in the spot, I just take it and I almost always sell it for like 2 gold. Like, what are the lesser Timewarps that they're happy to buy? Because it's minions, right? You're not getting spells. So we have the tier list here. What are they fishing for? I guess an Elise and then roll golden minions. Timewarp Lay, maybe? Lubber sometimes. I guess Timewarp Smuggler. Upbeat Upstart if you have a big right side. I don't know. I think that this is probably the one I would have disagreed with the most so far. but that is also just because I don't know, right? I don't know how they're using it. So I would say this is one where I'll probably ask for some clarification. I'm gonna ask Slyders like, hey, how do you use this thing? Like, what are you looking for? Why is it in the good category? That's probably the only one so far that I would have a little bit more trouble with. Cloning, yeah, that makes total sense. Especially in some anomalies we have, like Golden Arrow. You can just Golden Arrow something, clone a Golden Minion, boom, we're done. Permanent shields with glow scale, reborn death rattle, especially in mech lobbies, right? Get your Apexis, or I guess some undead you can reborn. Bananas is big tempo and spell power. Timewarp Nala, yep, same thing, big tempo. Scout in the good category feels a little bit too random, but I can see it, right? Like if you're strong, you can put it on the board. Maybe even with a Drakari, maybe keeping like two turns or so. Chameleon, only good for 2 chronoms is surprising, but I guess I can see it with it being nerfed, right? It used to be 1 chronom and then it was broken. On my own, I would have definitely still put Chameleon a tier higher. So that's interesting to see that they're not valuing it that high. Sea Glass with Avalanche is a really cool combo. Timewarp Peggy, very high. I do not play this often at all, but whenever a card is... Oh, it's because you got the thing now. Shore Marauder. You got Shore Marauder. Yeah, that really buffed Peggy. So Timewarp Peggy, now that we have Shore Marauder, that does make sense. Because if you think about it, if you have a Timewarp Peggy and you get 1 Shore Marauder, you have 2 Timewarp Peggies essentially, right? Because now it's twice as effective. So you can just double or triple or maybe even more quadruple the Peggy effect by adding Shore Marauders. And now you can just like cycle. Timewarp Poet, yeah, that just makes Stun Drake super easy. Frogs is a lot of value. Evo can help you find your pieces from your comp, and with 30-30 it's some tempo. These are not that surprising. Shavara, right, in the right setup. If you're playing demons, right, you get offered this thing. Super good with Urzel. Carathrus, yeah. Carathrus I have a lot of good experience with myself. You can farm like 7-8 deep blues, especially with Broodmother. I would say it is really good with Broodmother. It's so easy to summon stuff with that. You can have Titus Broodmother and just play like Stun Drake comp with Carathrus on the board and use it to buff your Stun Drake. Rat, yep, that's fine. Stone Drake I have not really played with, so cool to see that they're putting it in a good category. Gain the stats of all the minions you sold this turn. I guess if you have, you're playing Acid Rain, you can add some stats with it, but you want to use it with Poet, right? I guess you can use it to transition off your board and then mutinous it onto Stun Drake. Like, that's like an easy way to do it, right? You get a Golden Poet and then you double all the stats. I guess it's a stat multiplier, yeah. Every time you have stats and you sell it, you gain double if you have Golden Poet. Poet with Avalanche. Oh, right, Avalanche. Oh, disgusting, yeah. Yeah, okay, Poet Avalanche. I see. Yeah, that is nasty. Radio Star, that's no surprise. This thing can just win games. Electron is just a comp. You can play Electron, totally fine. Shade Quill, yep, that's just like Devouring. So it's more like a Felbor support, I guess. 3 little Quill in good, that is a little surprising. Has Reborn, and then you play 3 Blood Gems. That I would not have guessed at all. But then again, I don't play much Quillbor, right? I don't play a lot of Felbor, so I will try to change that. I'll try to push a little bit more Felbor when I can. Then we have the Tamuzo, that's the Ozumat buddy for Beetles, I'm guessing, where you can just get bigger like that. ixxdeee is cool with Blood Gems. So if you have big Blood Gems and you can gem transfer to ixxdeee makes it very difficult because now you have a big minion that's also not that vulnerable to scam. And then Prism Scale in good is also slightly surprising. This is something that I don't really play with myself, or I very rarely even see my opponents play. So I feel like this thing is going under the radar where it's not being played much. But I suppose the basic use of it is just I can make a big Stun Drake. And anytime you can make a big Stun Drake, you have a game plan. You could just add your Titus or your Death Rattles. Yeah. Now we have arrived in the very good category. So again, that is the second highest tier for the greater Time Warps. Warghoul, no explanation needed. That is disgusting Death Rattle value. Same for the Whirlotron. Discover a golden tier 7 minion I have never even seen, man. I really want this, but I've not been offered it. I hope they're gonna make it more common, like towards the end of the mid-season, because I play this game for a living and I have not even seen it. And I've played quite a few of those anomalies where you get 3 chronoms. On the house in very good is also slightly surprising. I think on my own I probably would have put that in good category, but I suppose it just helps you push towards your build, helps you get your brand, or you could push it for 6s. Jungle King is not surprising at all. This thing is a powerhouse. Just cycle. You can play new Zhao's then. I would say what made it a bit weaker is you no longer have Mount. Mount would be just amazing, right? You can reborn the Mount, and then with Jungle King having stealth, the Mount dies, everything gets buffed when it gets summoned, the Mount reborns. So it's very surprising because it's a bit of an unassuming card. If you just look at it, you're like, hey, beasts can't really cycle spells, right? It's a bit awkward. But it's similar like Evoker, where you just play it with Bran and with Shipman, and you generate a ton of spells, and then you just add beasts later. And then you can play new Zhao's, and they're super big and stuff. Immortal, very good. So Immortal still 1 chronom instead of 2, which is probably why Immortal is still in the very good category and Chameleon isn't. Oil, say no more. I do love money. Chef's Choice, also incredibly good. Very, very often just gives me the cards that I need, like Acid Rain or Tethys or stuff. Deos is no longer in, but again, oh, that was just the very good. So now we are moving into the auto pick, and yes, Deos used to be auto pick, but it's no longer in. It got banned. Armor is the not so fun pick, but I do it all the time. In the end, right, the goal is to gain MMR for a tier list, right? If we're talking about just pure fun, that's a different story. But for a tier list, this is about winning. This is about gaining MMR. And the amount of times where armor just turns a bottom 4 into a top 4 game is super high. So very, very, very good card. Timewarp Master Thief, I've also never seen. So, I mean, yes, stealing a minion that has exactly the same stats and keywords and stuff, probably pretty good. Discovering Sevens, Sanders, Insta Golden, Sargira, Stitch in the right lobby is just disgusting. It's so good. The amount of times I've just seen Stitch with Sneed Buddy and just do some unethical stuff, really, really good. And then Twirler is again with that Felbor, where these guys play way more Felbor than I do. Now, the times that I have played with Twirler, it is very, very good. Essentially, every blood gem is now a blood gem barrage, and it is much, much easier to get blood gems than it is to get blood gem barrages. You can just buy a foodie and, oh, there you go, 4 blood gem barrages. So, super good. And then the last auto picks are Goldenizer. Yeah, that just helps so often. The amount of times where you just have a brand on the board, and then you just put that, and you're like, oh, golden brand, here we go. I guess I just win now. Timewarp Thief, same thing. Oh, golden brand, I guess I just win now. Mathrais, now that they made it all type, so dumb. You just put a poet next to it, and there you go. That's your game plan. What? Oh, now the Mathrais just gains stats every time. Where it gets really dumb is when you have an Immortal as well. And they're both 1 chronom. So you can buy Immortal for 1 chronom. You can buy Mathrais for 1 chronom. Put the Immortal in front of the Mathrais. The Immortal will take the stats from the Mathrais. And then the Mathrais will gain the stats from the Immortal. And then the Poet will make that permanent. And then that's how you double your stats every turn. It's super dumb. And I don't know why Mathrais is an all type, because it just makes it so silly with Poet. And then Centurion is something that I have in so many of my first place games. You get Centurion with the Baller spell, you get Centurion with Oil, you get Centurion with the Battlecry spell when you have a brand on the board. Unbelievable amounts of money. And, you know, we've learned in this game that if you have a lot of money, you're probably going to do pretty well, because then you can build whatever you want, and the chance of getting a first place goes through the roof. Here we have an overview of all the greater time warps. You guys can see how they rank them. Again, it's going to be lower quality because everything needs to be rammed on top of one picture, but for all the detailed explanations, you can go back to the previous tiers. All right, guys, that was the tier list. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Please let me know in the comments what you think of it, stuff you disagree with, anything I missed. And please do remember to give Mathrais and Slyders some love for this awesome tier list they put together. Have a good one.